Well, hi, ladies. I'm excited to be back with you guys this morning and dive into the topic of hospitality. I think it goes without saying that having people into your home takes effort and, frankly, takes sacrifice. And I think the conversation of hospitality can feel like a very weighty or a very daunting task, especially as moms trying to have your home ready and prepared for people to come in. So, my goal this morning is to give you some kind of practical tools to implement and hopefully get you excited to have people where it doesn't feel like this drudgery, it doesn't feel daunting, but give kind of some practical nuggets to apply. So, just a forewarning for this morning, there's going to be quite a few points. It's going to kind of be a step by step of what it looks like to host, how to set yourself up ultimately for success. Now, I think for some people, depending on your personality, if you're type A, type B, whatever, I think sometimes hospitality or hosting can come easier for some people than others. But regardless of your personality and maybe even your natural wiring, ultimately it takes work for everyone. We all have the same time in our day, and it takes sacrifice ultimately because we have to sacrifice our time, our calendar, our grocery budget, our chores to dos. I mean, the list could go on of things that you have to prepare and get ready for people to come into your home. And I think it can be very easy to see that list of things that you have to have ready, the things that you have to prepare as a negative, and ultimately allow that to even hinder you from wanting people to come into your home or being willing to give up that time and that energy. I think even a temptation can be when it comes to thinking through hosting as something, oh, well, I'll do it when life gets easier or when my schedule becomes a lot lighter, when I don't have as many things going on. Possibly once I move to a bigger home, I have more space to host people, or I have a larger grocery budget, our economy gets a little bit better, whatever it might be. There can be temptations of waiting around for things to get a lot easier and allow those negatives or those laundry list of things to do keep us from having people over. I think it's crucial as we spend time this morning thinking of hospitality that we first see the benefits that come from welcoming people. So for point number one, the first thing that we need to see is the benefits in hosting. See the benefits in hosting. Now, I'm sure that most would acknowledge that there is just something different about going over to someone's house for a home cooked meal versus going out to maybe a restaurant or something. Both can be enjoyable times, but even the location alone fosters this different energy or this different tone when you're going to someone's home. Now, going out to a restaurant with friends is not bad and necessarily a waste of time. There's a lot of benefits that just come from human interaction and conversing and being around people. But I would argue that there are far more benefits that come from going to someone's home than just getting together for a casual conversation. Now, one of those benefits that we see in hosting is that it's an opportunity to show love to others. It's an opportunity to show love to other people. As we mentioned earlier, there is time and energy that's exerted when you're hosting. So when you choose to welcome people into your home, you're able to show them tangible and even sacrificial love to one another. Now, if you were here, Erica had mentioned a couple weeks ago, I had talked about friendship and even talking about the type of friend that we should be, the type of friend that we should be looking in other people. And one of the characteristics was being a loving friend. Now, there's many ways to show love and to be loving, but hosting gives you a great opportunity to show love to your friends or even show love to people that maybe you want to build a friendship with. Romans 12:10 and verse 13, it says, love one another with brotherly affection, and then outdo one another in showing honor. Verse 13 then jumps to and says, contribute to the needs of the saints and seek to show hospitality. So we see here, even in the Bible, this command to show hospitality to one another and to contribute to the needs of others, where we're able to model even selfless and sacrificial love, seeing God and the love that even He has shown us, being able to model that to other people. Where you're not just caring about yourself or even your own family, which, yes, we have to take care of our families, but going outside of even that small sphere and showing love to other people. You see, when you're hosting, you are caring for people and welcoming them in even a very unique and a specific way, where you can show love to people, grab them a cup of coffee, and that's being selfless and sacrificial, giving thought to them. But hosting is this very unique opportunity that you're able to show practical love towards others. shows that you went out of your way, you gave thought to them, you thought about them, wanting to invite them, you initiated, wanting to extend an invitation over. There was intentionality that took place. You thought to have them over, and then you prepared a meal. You thought, okay, what is something that this person would like? You got the ingredients, you prepared the meal, then you prepared your home to be ready to have people over. You cleaned the kitchen, you cleaned the bathroom, you set the table. There's a lot of intentionality. You don't just snap your fingers and your home is perfectly primed and ready to have guests over, especially if you have little kids. There's effort that needs to be prepared to have it ready for people to come. 1 Peter 4:9, it says, show hospitality to one another without grumbling. So we see another command here in the Bible about showing hospitality, but it emphasizes to do it without grumbling. Now, there wouldn't be a need to clarify, do it without grumbling, if grumbling never took place. There's a clarification because we can quickly be tempted, myself included, to complain while doing it, where I love having people over, but there's a temptation of seeing all the things that it takes and wanting to complain and grumble to your spouse or to yourself or whatever it might be. We have to see hosting as an opportunity to be selfless to others and to showcase that love that we have been shown by God himself. Now, it can be costly, but as we see this morning, we will reap so many benefits. So the next benefit that we see is that it's an intentional time for relationship building. It's intentional time for relationship building. You see, when you host, it's typically people that you have a relationship with or possibly people that you want to build a relationship with. So having others over is a great time to build on an existing relationship or even utilize that time to start a new relationship. It's this scheduled time to be with others and spend time with each other. And that doesn't mean that this is the only avenue for relationship building. That can happen in a myriad of ways. But as we mentioned, it's this intentional and even unique tone that is within someone's home. You see, a date was set, a time was scheduled, the guests were chosen, you chose a meal, the preparations were made. You have this predetermined time for relationship building. You see, I've never been hosted by someone or had someone into our home that I didn't leave having a deeper relationship with that person. I have always left the time that I've been hosted or I've hosted someone knowing them on a deeper level. And that reason for that is for our subpoint C, it allows for deeper and longer conversations. It allows for deeper and longer conversations. You see, when you are hosting or you're being hosted by someone, there's usually not a ton of activities. You're not going out to the movies, you're not going bowling, you're not doing necessarily a lot of things. You might maybe pull out like a board game or a card game maybe at the end of the night or something. But usually when you are hosting, there's this natural built-in conversation time. I would hope that you aren't being hosted by someone. You go to someone's house and you're just sitting in silence. I mean, that would be super, super awkward. If there was no conversations that you were taking place and you're just kind of checking your phone, how much longer do we have here? Just eating my food. Hopefully there is conversation that is taking place when you're hosting or you're being hosted by someone. You see, being in a home fosters that more intimate and even that relational environment that you don't really have to the same capacity maybe outside of a home. It allows for those deeper conversations and even helps you get past some of those surface level conversations and have more substantial ones. Now, another benefit is having those longer conversations where you have that predetermined time for more conversation, where you're not quickly walking by, you're kind of briefly chatting with someone, or even let's say you're going out to a restaurant, you can sit there for some time. But I'm sure I'm not the one who's had the waiter that's like coming around, do you need another refill on your drink or do you need a to-go box? And they're kind of waiting around because they're like, I want to turn this table and get a new party and, get my tips or whatever. So you eventually kind of feel more of a time crunch that you wouldn't really feel within a home. So it alleviates some of that. Now, inevitably, there will be some distraction. There'll be interruption, especially if you've your kids there. It's not going to be like this serene, calm, perfect environment, but you don't feel as much of the time crunch when you're within someone's home. All that to say, being in that homey environment allows for more of those deep conversations and also the longer conversations. Now, again, that's not the only way that we can foster those relationships. obviously, as moms, it's helpful to have a girls' night and not to have your kids with you, to go out to coffee and have undistracted time. Those are all great. Again, being with people, conversing with each other, having relationships that you're building on is always a really good thing. But even recognizing the different tones in the different environments allow for different conversations and even kind of a different aim. So if we see hosting as truly beneficial for our relationships, then ultimately that energy and all that effort that we exerted is worth it. We should be encouraged by that when we see these benefits. So for point number 2, we need to commit to welcoming others into our home. If we see those benefits, then we are much more willing and joyfully ready to welcome people into our home, not seeing it as this drudgery and this burden, but ultimately seeing it as a joy and a willingness to see the benefits that you will reap from doing this. Now, ultimately, when it comes to hosting, it is very crucial that there is a plan in place, or frankly, hosting's never going to happen. You see, we need to plan ahead of, okay, how in my family, how in my home am I practically going to make this happen? So the first place to start thinking through is the people that you either want to deepen a relationship with or people that you maybe want to build a relationship with. So for subpoint A, identify the invitees. Identify the invitees. You see, my husband and I, we have an ongoing list of people that we have identified as wanting to have over into our home. We try to have a varying groups and different types of people over, whether that's people that are newer to the church that we frankly just don't know at all, and we've seen them quite a few times, so we want to have them over, get to know them, or maybe it's people that are recently in our small group that we kind of talk with a lot, but not for an extended period of time. Or maybe it's people that we serve with, or younger people that we're discipling, or even close friends of ours that we just want to get together with. We tried to kind of broaden the variety of people because I think a temptation when it comes to hosting is you want to have your best friends over and you want to hang out. And that's great. We do that. We have our close friends over. But I found it's very helpful if you even broaden the groups of people and see the benefits that come from different types of people. So I would encourage you to, one, have a list even that's maybe not in your head, maybe something that you write down, because I know my husband and I are like, oh, we should have those people over. And then 3 months later, we're like, oh man, like I never wrote down that name and I never texted that person. So I know it's helpful for me to even write down people that I want to reach out to and trying to plan ahead for those things. And then also the second point is to kind of branch out with the types of people. You see, we serve in the student ministry, so we've had junior high or high school schoolers over. We've had young adults that are in our college young adult ministry, or we've had newer couples that just got married or they're engaged, or people that are married with kids, trying to kind of broaden that and then seeing a lot of benefits that come from it. We've had people that are older than us that have lived through the young kid years, so utilizing that time of even us asking them questions, learning from someone that's older and wiser than me. People that are dating, that they have questions for us of what does that look like, trying to invest in them, trying to maybe even encourage people that are in your similar life stage. There's going to be different benefits that you get from people that are older than you, people that are in the same life stage as you, people that are younger. There's so many benefits that come from trying to broaden outside of maybe your small little list. Now, once you've identified the people, then the next step would be to reach out. So subpoint B would be to set the date. Now, depending on how busy you are and maybe the other people are, you might go about this differently, but typically how I do it is I will start by asking them what days of the week they are more free. Because for us here at the church, we have small groups or we have different areas maybe that we serve in. So usually there's some nights of the week for my family that are kind of automatically booked and just not really available. So typically when I will reach out to someone, I'll ask them, hey, what days of the week are you more free? You don't have pre-existing weekly reoccurring things on your calendar. And then I will get whatever days of the week they're more free, look at our weekly calendar, and if they're free on a Tuesday and a Friday, I know, okay, Tuesday, we have small group every Tuesday, so that doesn't really work for us. But Fridays, I don't have a reoccurring thing every single Friday. So then if those are the two options, okay, Friday is going to be the one that we have a common denominator on. And then usually what I will do is I will send out 2 to 3 dates and ask if any of them work and kind of let them choose for whatever works best for them. Because I've even found in past experiences, it can kind of be awkward. Sometimes it's not wrong, but it can sometimes present a little awkward situation if you send out just one date and maybe it doesn't work for them. And then I know it's happened to me. I've been asked, oh, are you guys free this day? And I'm like, no, we're not. Are you free another day to have us over and to cook a meal for me? Like, I don't, it can just kind of feel sometimes a little bit awkward, or maybe you feel like, oh, am I a last minute cancellation? I don't know. You're trying to give people the benefit of the doubt, but I know sometimes it can be a little bit awkward if one date doesn't work and you're like, okay, do I ask them to give me another date to have me over, whatever it might be. I know it's been helpful for myself to usually give them some options, maybe 2 dates, maybe 3 dates, let them choose what works best for them. And then once the date and then the time is solidified, I'll immediately put it in, we have our family Google calendar that we share. So I'll put it in there immediately so I know that's taken care of. And then the next thing would be subpoint C, is to decide on a welcoming meal. Decide on a welcoming meal. So sometimes this will be over text or sometimes it'll be in person. But the first would be to identify who we're going to have over, reach out to them, get a date that's solidified. And then the next thing that I will do is I'll ask them, hey, do you have any food that you're allergic to? Or do you have food that you just really don't like? Our family, mainly my husband, but we don't really eat seafood and stuff like that. So I know that there's preferences that people have. So I usually will ask kind of at the beginning, hey, is there something you're allergic to, or is there food that you just really don't like? And I try to get that ahead of time. That way I don't have to like circle back 2 or 3 weeks later and I'm like, I already planned this meal. I'm like, oh wait, I never asked if you have allergies. And like, oh, I'm allergic to gluten. I'm like, oh great, I was gonna make like a homemade loaf or whatever it might be. I usually try to know ahead of time those things, and that doesn't necessarily mean in that moment I'm like, I'm making this, but I try to know, okay, what are some kind of off the table things that I can't choose from? That way, when I start to meal plan, I know kind of some options that I can choose from my regular rotation. Now, for myself personally, I have a list of meals that I rotate through for our family, and I have it separated by categories and all of that. You don't have to do it that way. But I usually have about probably 6 meals that I rotate through for hosting. There's meals that I know, okay, this would not be a good one. We have some food that's like Danish food. I'm like, I don't know if everyone's gonna like that type of food or whatever it might be, or meals that just take super, super long time. I'm like, okay, I don't think that's necessarily super tangible. So I have about 6 meals that I rotate through, ones that I know are gonna make plenty of food that I'm not gonna run out of and they will fill them, ones that don't take excessive amount of time, and then also ones that aren't gonna be super out there with flavors. That doesn't mean that you can't have some different types of food, but ones that would be generally enjoyed by most people. Now, if we have families with kids over, I'll try to have something that's more kid-friendly, something that I know that they will sit down for at least a few minutes and have a couple bites of food. Or if we have people, a lot of adult males, I'll try to have more protein, something that's gonna fill them, because I know pasta, if there's no meat, they're like gonna be devouring that entire pan. So trying to be mindful of like, who am I having over? What would they like? How much food do they eat? And trying to be mindful when I'm selecting the meal that I'm gonna have. I try to keep in mind of that. And then even, let's say it's a Friday night that I'm having someone over, then I'm like, okay, I have Bible study on Friday mornings every week, so I'm not gonna be home in the morning. So trying to even think through of what do I have going on for that day? How much am I going to be home? So if I know I'm gonna be out of the house because I have a dentist appointment for the kids and I have Bible study or whatever, then I'll probably simplify the meal that I choose. Maybe I'll use my crock pot, or I'll use my Instant Pot, or maybe like a 1-sheet pan dinner where I'm not sitting or standing at the stove for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, something that the oven kind of does its job for me and I'm not having to waste as much time when I'm already gonna be out and about more that day. It's important to be realistic when you're trying to think through a welcoming meal and realize it doesn't have to be gourmet. It doesn't have to be like, try not to do something that you've never done before and like, I'm gonna try to really wow them. It's helpful if you've made it before and you kind of know the steps and you're not getting all stressed when things aren't coming together because you've never tried it before. So try to be realistic and then also keep your invitees in mind, something that would be welcoming to them. Okay, I know that's a lot of groundwork of, okay, how do I kind of start to initiate and all that? But then the next thing would be, okay, how do I actually make a plan? It's the week of, I've kind of laid the groundwork. A couple weeks ago, I reached out, we have the date confirmed, I already selected the meal, but I'm hosting in 5 days, so where do I go from here? For point 3, you need to make a plan for the event. Make a plan for the event. Now, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but I naturally am more of a planner. I am a little bit more type A, so this might come more natural to some than to others. But regardless, if you're type A or type B, whatever it might be, making a plan if you are planning to host is crucial. Because as I said, you don't just snap your fingers and everything just magically comes to place. There is things that you have to plan ahead for. And if you don't, then you're gonna probably be door dashing a meal last minute, having your husband run and go get the food. You're gonna get frustrated with the kids because you're trying to clean up and they're knocking on the door, you're checking all your junk into the spare closet, whatever it might be. I'm sure we've all been there with some of those last minute things. That making a plan is very, very helpful if you're trying to have people into your home. So the first thing to plan for is for A, establish a shopping and meal plan. Establish a shopping and meal plan. Now, if you don't already have a shopping schedule and a meal plan, I would highly encourage that you have that in place because it will save you so much time and it will save you so much headache if you just had set aside 10, 15 minutes to just plan what you're gonna be buying at the grocery store and the things that you're gonna be making. I know even one of the mentor moms, Kristen, she's taught on meal planning here in Navmo. So if you want even more in depth of like, what does meal planning look like? I've listened to hers a while ago and it was super helpful. So you can even go online, get more practical tools of what meal planning would look like if you don't have that in place. But if you do, then just follow your normal shopping meal plan schedule. I mean, for me, every Sunday night is when I meal plan and I write down our grocery list. And then I have our groceries, our kind of bulk groceries we have delivered every Monday morning. And then usually 1 to 2 times a week, I'll go to Costco for certain things or I'll go to Trader Joe's for other things. But kind of our bulk order is every Monday. That's when our groceries come. So if I know I'm hosting on Friday, then I'll have that in my shopping list. I'll have those things ready to go. That way it's not the day of and I'm like, I don't have the ingredients for what I'm making today. I already have those ahead of time. Now, if I'm hosting maybe on a Monday and that's when I get my groceries, maybe I'll bump that a day earlier because I personally like to start prepping ahead of time, even in the morning for when I'm gonna be hosting in the evening. For instance, if I am making enchiladas or something like that, those are usually a little bit more labor intensive. There's more sides and more time to take for it. Then in the morning before I take my son to school, then maybe I'll make the guacamole. I'm like, okay, the guacamole is done by 8:30 in the morning. It's in the fridge. So like, I know that's already done. And then maybe even there's been times that I will pre-cook the chicken the night before in our oven and I'll keep it in the fridge. So then the next day I'm like, okay, I already have pre-cooked chicken that I didn't have to spend extra money on at the store. I was able to just cook the chicken in the oven. So then the next day I'm like, I have that ready. Now I just need to mix the verde sauce, wrap it up in the tortilla, throw it in the oven. Trying to kind of even break apart certain tasks and plan ahead for when you can, especially when you're going here to there. You don't have like a 3-hour window in the middle of the day to do absolutely everything. It's super helpful that I've experienced for myself of when I'm able to start kind of doing tasks at different times. Let's say I want to make cookies for someone, then I'm like, okay, I'll make the cookie dough the day before. I put it in the freezer. All I have to do is roll the balls and throw it into the oven 10 minutes before we're ready to eat them, whatever it might be, trying to kind of think through how can I separate some of these tasks, that way it's not having to be done all within a couple hours at the same time. Now, obviously, that's going to depend kind of for what meal you make. Sometimes you can't always prepare everything ahead of time, but whenever you can, it's helpful with that last minute scramble and even some of the chaos. Now, other times when I know I'm just going to be gone pretty much the whole day, then I'm like, okay, well, I'll do the crock pot because I can leave it for 4 hours. And frankly, I don't really have to do anything. So that's super helpful. So trying to think through, okay, what do I have going on for the day? How much am I going to be home? How can I divvy up some of these things and not have to do it all at the same time? Okay, the next thing would be to establish a chore plan. So another way to plan ahead is establish a chore plan. Now, if you don't have a chore plan, again, that is something I think is very helpful, and it might even rotate depending your week. But personally, how I do it is I have a weekly calendar that's on our fridge where every Sunday night when I'm meal planning and I'm doing our grocery list, I also will take my weekly calendar and I will write down my to-dos for the week. So I will assign the days that I'm going to do laundry, which is usually every day or every other day, and what days I'm going to clean the bathroom, what days I'm going to clean the kitchen, vacuum, whatever it might be. I'll assign those days. So let's say I'm hosting on Friday night. I know if I clean our guest bathroom on Tuesday, my two toddler boys will get it all dirty by the time we hit Friday, okay? So I'm like, okay, bathroom is usually cleaned either the night before or the day of, but laundry, I don't really have to do laundry the day someone's coming over. So that can be something, okay, if I skip one day of laundry, it's not gonna freak out anybody. It's gonna be fine. I don't have to have all of our clothes cleaned for our guests. That's something I can just take off my plate for that day. Or maybe I can clean our kitchen. I can do more of the deep clean the day before and just kind of like tidy up after I clean. I don't have to do that the day of. So trying to think through what are the zones in my house that matter and what are the zones that don't really matter. If your bedroom maybe is a little bit messy, people probably aren't going to be going in there. So not to say, just chuck everything in there and hide the door necessarily, but if you're in a scramble, trying to think through, okay, what are the zones that are more important? Where should I give my time to? And trying to kind of plan ahead. Now, with that, the last thing I would say is to, for subpoint C, involve your whole family. Involve your whole family. This should ultimately be a family effort where all hands are on deck. And depending on your family and the ages of kids you have, whatever it might be be more helpful from certain members than others. I have our 8-month-old who she can't do anything, but praise God, she's a very easy baby. So she will just happily sit in the corner and play and let me do some work. But even my 4.5-year-old and my almost 3-year-old, even them being little and crazy and rambunctious, they can actually be really helpful, even in us training them where we have told them, hey, here are the expectations that we have for you guys. We have taught them the last 30 minutes before guests come, you guys have to clean up your toys. That's not my job. You guys clean up your toys. You have your toy baskets. So they know that's one of the zones that they are assigned. And yes, they need some reminders, and sometimes they need help with certain things that they can't reach, but I am not dedicating my time to their toy area. That is something that we have trained them ahead of time, those constant reminders, where that's your zone that you're in charge of, and I'll remind you of that. And then even they can put the pillows back that they were just like sword fighting with and the blankets, and they can start getting me different objects that I'm not having to run around the house for. So trying to kind of prepare them ahead of time. This is what it looks like when we're hosting, and here are certain things, even at their little toddler age, that they can be helpful with. Now, my husband is also very helpful, and he'll usually try to come home usually like 30 minutes before we're hosting. So he will usually take out the trash last minute, because usually there's like raw chicken or something that we just want to get out of the house, have it be nice and clean and everything. And usually there's always a last minute vacuum. Even if I vacuumed 2 hours ago, there's always crumbs on the ground. So maybe he'll do a last minute 2-minute vacuum on the rug for me. Depending where I'm at in my prep, if I haven't set the table yet, then that's something that the boys, they know how to bring the plates over, help dad set the table. And then usually the last like 10, 15 minutes, his main job is just, hey, keep the kids in the family room. Can you just play with them? And that's super helpful because in the last like 10, 15 minutes, when I'm trying to finish the last few things, he'll just play with the kids. That way they're not coming around my feet, getting in the way while I'm carrying like a hot dish or whatever. So that is super helpful. Now, I will say it's very helpful if you plan these tasks ahead of time. That way kind of everyone knows what zone they're in charge of, because frankly, there's been times I've not communicated to my husband ahead of time of things that would be helpful, and then I'm left frazzled and scrambling, and he doesn't know what I need help with. So I've learned even from past experiences that it's really helpful if you know, okay, we're hosting tomorrow night. This is what I'm making. Hey, it'd be really helpful if you can do this for me once you get home. And not like giving like a laundry list of like, here's everything I want from you, but kind of being a team of like, okay, how can we help each other out? That way it's not the last 10 minutes and everyone's getting frustrated with each other. We kind of planned ahead and you kind of dedicated certain roles to each other in different zones. And then you're able to work as a unified team and not really having friction with your kids or with your spouse or whatever it might be. It's helpful to kind of talk through those things before. And I found that in my own personal life. Now, the next thing would be, okay, you've planned ahead, but now the event is starting. So what does it look like when you have someone over? So the last point here is to utilize the time for friendship building. Utilize the time for friendship building. Now, as I mentioned, a lot of the benefits that come from this is the deeper conversations, building upon friendships, starting new friendships. And one of the ways to kind of foster that is by creating a welcoming environment. So point A, creating a welcoming environment. Now, we like to have a relatively tidied space for our guests. Doesn't mean it has to be picture perfect by any means. But prior to kids, I would light candles, and for peace of mind, I now just use a diffuser with some nice scents that are in our space because I don't really trust my kids with the candles on the table. And yeah, no, I'm not gonna do that. But I try to have at least a pleasing scent when someone walks through the door. So I'll put some things in our diffuser. My husband will usually just put on some like calming music. Usually it's like some lo-fi or whatever on Spotify, just something in the background where you're not walking into like, I don't know, emptiness, and trying to have just more of like a cozy environment where it's not gonna be like awkwardly quiet in your house. And then usually we will turn off maybe one of our like really bright lights, and we have this more warm lighting in our family room, this lamp. So usually we'll turn that on, trying to kind of prepare the space where it's very warm and it's very welcoming for someone to come into. Now, my dad was born and raised in Denmark, and there's this term in Danish that's called hygge, which maybe you've heard it before, maybe you've not, but it refers to something that's just cozy. That's ultimately what it translates to. And in Denmark, they embrace this hygge environment where they just want coziness pretty much all time of the year. So this was something that I was modeled my entire childhood, was having a very cozy home where my family, we would have people over all the time, and there was always candles lit, there was always more warm lighting, there was always some soft music playing in the background, and it just makes you feel a little bit more calm, a little bit more serene space, even with little children around. It just brings some of the high stimulation down just a little bit and helps someone feel kind of automatically welcomed into the home. Now, while having a yummy meal and having more of a calm space is all good and should be something that we're pursuing, ultimately the evening is about that relationship building. So for subpoint B, it would be helpful to come up with a few good questions to ask. Come up with a few good questions to ask. Now, sometimes conversations flow easier than others depending who you have over. But I know for us, it's been helpful to have even just a couple questions in mind. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm like writing it down on like a note card and I'm like awkwardly flipping through like all my questions that I pre-selected or anything, but trying to be mindful of like, okay, I don't know this person. I want to get to know about this. Or maybe they said, hey, like I'm really struggling with this and I'd like your wisdom on it or whatever. Then I'm like trying to remember that conversation of like, oh, I should ask them, hey, like what were you guys wanting some help through? Whatever it might be. Trying to think through just some questions or some conversation. Again, not like on a note card and making it super awkward in this like forced conversation, but sometimes conversations stall and it's a little bit awkward. Other times they just keep going. So it's helpful to kind of think through of like, what would be something that we could ask them? What would be something that we want to get to know about them, whatever it might be. Okay, the next thing would be to think through the kid plan. Think through the kid plan. Like I mentioned earlier, we personally try our best to prepare our kids ahead of time, where we are laying out expectations for them of, okay, you have to sit down for the meal. Even if you are finished, you have to sit down for X amount of minutes before you are allowed to be dismissed. You have to wait for us to dismiss you. That's something that we constantly reinforce even when we're at home, just the 5 of us. So trying to train them and prepare them ahead of time of there's going to be other kids here. These are not all your toys. You're going to have to share with them. Because I can't expect a 4 and a 2-year-old to automatically know how to host someone over. I have to set them up for success. Yes, I have to address things when they are not obeying and all of that. But as a mom, I want to prepare them as much as I can to success and to obey. Now, if we have little kids over, I'll try to be strategic with seating. So I have like a portable high chair that I can bring out because my baby's in a high chair. So we have another little portable one I can bring out if there's another baby, or we have a bench that we can pull for more seating, whatever it might be, trying to kind of be strategic about how can we best help the other family that maybe has kids over. Now, also with the meal, trying to have something that's maybe a little bit more kid-friendly, or a little option of like, okay, maybe I'm not making like a separate meal for them, but maybe like a little something fun that I know that they will sit down even for just like 5-10 minutes and eat before they want to go play. Trying to be mindful of that. Sometimes it's involved having a little activity for the kids to play after dinner that they can kind of entertain themselves with, or if the other parent is fine with it, maybe putting on a show for 30 minutes and you guys kind of have maybe more time to talk, whatever it might be, trying to be mindful of how can we kind of navigate that. Now, typically when we have families over with little kids, then usually the night will end earlier. So usually we try to start a little bit earlier in the night and not starting at like 7 p.m. when maybe that's like someone else's bedtime. So maybe starting at 6, knowing it's not going to be quite as long of a night, and then trying to just be very mindful of like, okay, what are pockets of time? Even if it's 10 minutes and then our kids interrupt, trying to be very mindful with those little pockets of time amidst the kids that are playing. And knowing that there's going to be interruptions, there's going to be some distraction, but that's okay. I'm still able to foster more of that relational, intimate time with them. Now, the next thing would be to think through the adult plan. Think through the adult plan. Now, recently we have had quite a few adults without kids over. Even here at our church, we've had a lot of newer young adults within our church, so we've been trying to have a lot of them over. So typically that means they want to stay out late, and we have kids. So how does that work? We can't really be out at 11 p.m. with our children getting dessert, so we'll try to have them over. So those nights we'll prepare our kids ahead of time. Hey, so-and-so, these 2 or 3 people are coming over. One of us, whether it's mom or dad, one of us will leave and put the kids to bed, and then the other person will stay back and keep entertaining our guests and talk to them. And we'll tell our kids ahead of time, hey, bedtime is going to be a lot shorter tonight. You're not going to have all the bath or the story time, whatever it might be. It's going to be a little bit different, and we're having guests over, so you have to be mindful of that. And again, trying to prepare them ahead of time. And then once our kids are down, then we've had people that are staying till like 11, midnight, and we're happy to do that because when our kids are asleep, we have 3 hours. We just can't leave our children unattended and go to a restaurant, but we can utilize now these extended hours that maybe we wouldn't have being out with our kids because our kids are now asleep. So trying to be strategic if you have people that are coming without kids, even preparing your kids ahead of time. Hey, it's only going to be one of us tonight. Dad will come in and say goodnight real quick, but you're not having the elaborate plan tonight, and preparing them for success ahead of time. Now, the last thing that I will end it all with is for subpoint E, don't put pressure on yourself to make everything perfect. Don't put pressure on yourself to make everything perfect. Now, I've mentioned this earlier, but try your best to be realistic and don't overstretch yourself. If you have to throw a frozen lasagna in the oven, that's okay. They won't care. Or if your baseboards are not spick and span, I promise you they're not like getting a magnifying glass looking at it. If there's some stains in your carpet, it's okay. People are going to give you the benefit of the doubt, and it's not the end of the world. So try to be realistic with hosting, because frankly, if you wait till your home is like HDTV ready, it's ready to be displayed or listed or whatever it might be, it's never going to happen. I know it would never happen for me if my home was always, if I was waiting for it to be completely perfect. And also another caveat I would say is that even with the space that you have, for our family, we live in a 2-bedroom apartment. So we don't have a ton of space. But I will just say, if we had waited till we had a big space or we had our own home, we would have not had 8 years pretty much of hosting if we had just been waiting around. So even in our 2-bedroom apartment, we have strategized what is the best way that we can maximize this space. And yes, does that mean we can have like 2 big families over? Probably not. We usually can have 1 family at a time or a couple single people over at a time. So trying to be mindful of like, okay, we don't have a ton of space, but we still have enough space to have a certain amount of people and not waiting around for everything to be picture perfect, or else years and years go by and you won't be able to reap all of these benefits that come from it. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, it does take sacrifice, it takes work, but from my personal experience, it is always so worth it. I've never hosted someone before, and I've said that was a complete waste of my time. Or even when I've been hosted by someone else, I've never left that and being like, I shouldn't have gone. That was dumb. I've always left encouraged both from being hosted by someone and hosting myself. You see, there's so many benefits that come from hosting and being hosted. And I do pray that after even this time, you can start implementing some of those little tools and tips and have success in it, that it would not be this drudgery and this burden, but ultimately you would be able to have joy in it, and it would be able to be an enjoyable and a sweet time of fellowship. So with that, I will leave you guys for discussions and even talk through maybe some practical tips that you can start doing this coming season. Thank you guys.